Hello there, and welcome to Get Good. My name is Bruce, and as always, I'm joined by Magnus, and this week we are lucky enough to be joined by Maxime Penaud. Maxime, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Magnus. Hi, Bruce. I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
problem.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been something that we've been looking forward to. I mean, Maxime has a host of awards to his name: 7 Golden Demons, 2 Slayer Swords, a host of other accolades, including Best of Show at SMC, and recently Best of Painting at Monte Sansevino. So it is a real treat to have this conversation. So we'll just dive into it. And Manus, I'll hand over to you because we were talking a little bit about scale in the pre-show. So let's dive into it.
Yeah, I think we should start there. We just did the wrap up of 25 video where we featured your Monty model.
Nice. Thank you very much, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, no, thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to, I mean, just to mention, if you've not watched that episode, if you want to see Magnus, I, and Dave break down that incredible piece, I will include the link in the top right.
Yeah.
Just so
Everyone should watch it because it's really interesting. So
I
you
think
should jump in.
this is a really good format. You should do that with many models because it's so
Yes.
interesting to deep dive into a model and to analyze it. And yeah,
Yes.
it's really interesting.
I agree. I think it would be on the cards without promising too much to pick like a piece or two from every competition we go to and then kind of like try and deep dive a little bit on it. Not necessarily like 2.5 hours of talking, but maybe like 30 minutes on each of them, something like that, because you're not the only one saying that. Everyone is
Yeah.
like, oh, that was really quite interesting, because you might see some things that you didn't otherwise. Right?
Yeah, exactly. On social media, we spend 10 seconds watching a model and then it's gone. And I think this is really good format. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, talking a little bit about so you took best of painting at Monty with your piece. And well, both Bruce and I obviously think it's like a very special one. But it's especially to me because it's not Warhammer scale, and it's still a piece that was like very worked on, very refined. Like doing a bust or like a box art or whatever, you can kind of sometimes like cut a corner or do like one side is like, okay, we'll do that much darker or a different light or whatever. But this one you kind of couldn't. But it is not like a small model either. It's massive. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about like how is it different in terms of scale and project planning, and what did you actually do to overcome it? Because I imagine it's like hundreds of hours of work.
Yeah. So actually, it's not that different from a small model. Yeah. And it was the first time I was doing something that big. So I think I was a bit naive in terms of amount of hour to spend on it. Like initially I was like, yeah, I need 3 weeks to paint it and that will be fine. And it was not. It took a bit more than that. But yeah, for me, the key, the first thing to say is I can't spend like 2 hours every day for 6 months. I'm not Albert. I don't have this discipline. So if I need to spend a lot of time, I need to spend a lot of time in a short period, So I started the model at the end of September, the 23 of September. And I was like, it will be over at the end of October, so everything will be fine. So, and I started to paint it like super slowly. Like I started by the bust, just the upper part, and it was weird because I thought that 3 weeks was more than enough, but I was painting super slowly. So after 1 week of work, just the head was started and nothing more was done. So I was like, okay, I need to paint a bit faster. So yeah, I think the upper part took me 3 or 4 weeks, and the approach was really close to a small model. Like I started by painting the face, then I I did the base coat, and yeah, I painted by part, and it was yeah yeah, the process was quite simple actually. I don't like to sketch too much the model because some people like to do a rough sketch and then to
Yeah,
refine
yeah.
it. And I have the feeling that if I do that, I will spend too many hours to refine and to correct the thing. So I really like to be clean, in the first coat of paint. And so instead of a sketch, I'm doing just different base coats according to the area of the model. So if I have basically 3 different base coats: a light one, a medium one, and a dark one. And thanks to this, I can see the final result, and I can, I can see the model in my head. But this is not a rough sketch, so it's really close to a small scale project in terms of process.
Yeah, it kind of blew my mind because you after the breakdown we did, you uploaded the series of kind of your whip or some whip photos from the project, and seeing some of it just be gray with other areas almost done on it's quite normal for us to see that on like Instagram for maybe smaller things, right? But I can't help but feel that sometimes some people do it more for the Instagram feel, actually, because you get to show something finished, like a part of something finished, instead of like if you sketch everything, now every update from there is just, a little bit cleaner, a little bit cleaner, a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
cleaner. So for showing something on social media, the approach of finish a thing, finish a thing, finish a thing is better. So oftentimes I wonder if that's why we see so many people um, actually do it. But I didn't think that would be the approach at all for a bigger thing because, I don't have your mind for seeing everything like that, especially because this is like quite like a sophisticated piece in terms of lighting and cast shadows and everything. It has to fit together, so it has to come out like a whole piece in the end. You can't like nothing can. Well, you can stretch reality a little bit, but you can't have like, oh, this is just not working, and then you have to
yeah,
redo an entire part. So that's why I was so blown away, I think, with
yeah. In fact, at the beginning of the piece, as it was so huge, and as I'm a bit lazy, I was thinking that I was just gonna be the upper part and to present it as
oh,
a bust. Yeah, that's why I painted the upper part and I
ah,
finished it, and then I did the legs. So that's why there is this picture on Instagram with all the upper part finished,
yeah.
and then the legs just base coated. And yeah, it was not the best approach, I think. But when I realized that, yeah, I had 3 weeks, I think, to finish the legs and the shield. And I was like, yeah, it's more than enough to finish it. So let's do it. Yeah. So I did it in 2 parts, actually.
But that is curious.
That's
Oh,
why.
I'm happy we talked to you because yeah, we would have never known.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. I mean, it is fascinating to me how kind of like initial techniques diverge even at the highest level. Because to your point, Maxime, you'll do your 3 base coats, which isn't a sketch; it is almost like light planning. And obviously, contrast that with someone like Mark or Eric, who everything is sketched and it's rough and then refined further in. And I think sometimes people can fall into the fallacy of, oh, well, there's a right way to do it. But it seems to me the more conversations that we have, it is so intrinsically tied with how your brain works and what you are looking for in order to let you know you can proceed with the plan that you have in your head. Is that a fair summation?
I 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I was painting exactly in the same way like Mark or Eric. And then I was mesmerized by the work of Dave Perryman, Infernal Brush. And I start to follow all these tutorials, and I start to look a lot at his technique. And he is always saying that if you want something super clean, super smooth, you can't be messy. You need to be clean at the first stages. And this his approach will change my way of thinking about miniature and miniature painting.
Mhm.
And yeah, and during the last 3 years, I think, or since the Dinner Galore, I'm also thinking a lot about the texture of the paint. And I like to play with satin and shiny coats. And if the surface is not perfectly smooth, you can see all the bumps on the
Yeah.
paint. So you really have to be clean first. And I think I can paint faster now than I was able to do before.
Because you don't have to clean up
Yeah,
in between, or
the process is super straightforward,
yeah.
like from the
It's a
beginning to the end.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a funny thing, because I think it's one of the things I get asked the most is how to get those sharp lines and whatnot, especially like a dark line. And the truth is, it's a base coat that is never touched, right? It's like you cut into a base coat and then you get it thinner than you could put a brush line, and you don't disturb it. So it's not a brushed in line. It's you cutting into something you painted before, right? Which
Yeah.
is important on small things. But I think it's almost like two schools of painting, where if you don't paint like that, it's hard to fathom, because for smaller things, like let's say 40 or 32 mil, when you then try and put a dark line, well, it will be too big, right? So it's just a different approach.
Yeah,
It
it's a
is
different approach. Yeah.
It is fascinating in this like hobby, like in particular, where like that finish, that texture becomes this critical thing. Like imagine going to a National Portrait Gallery and saying, I love the painting, but it's textured to all hell. I can't enjoy it. And it is definitely something that we crave in terms of that finish. It's so interesting to me that you kind of looked at Dave's work and thought, that's the feel that I want, and then I just need to paint like it to chase it. I do want to ask about how you conceive the projects, how you make those initial choices, because I guess, following on from when you first posted the Ogre Mercenary, you posted the little guy from Spearman, I think, from the Empire Army. Is like, this was the inspiration for the colors. And so I guess there's maybe a question of like, when you sit down to plan a project, are you or that's the question, actually, is not
is it sat down and plan?
do you sit down and plan, or is it actually I'm waiting for a smack of inspiration and then I'm going to go about it?
In fact, there is two very different process. Like all year long, I'm painting mini just to have fun and to enjoy and to paint things. And this is really a hobby. And when I start this kind of project, I just sit and paint and let the flow go. And there is no choice, no plan. It's like this. But all these pieces are like small laboratory for me. And I did some experiment on new texture, new colors, new render of anyway, all this kind of thing. And then when I start a project for competition, it's totally different. When I start a project for a competition, as I said, I don't want to spend too much time on a too long period. Otherwise, I will lose my motivation. So I do a lot of planning, like in my head. As I'm not able to paint as much as I would like to, I really need to find solution to be able to paint and to think about projects without being in my studio. So for a project for competition, I start with an idea in my head, and basically I'm doing all the model in my head, like the conversion, if there is a conversion or if there is sculpting. I'm doing everything in my head. I'm doing the painting, all this kind of thing. Like if I'm taking a train, for example, I'm painting in my head for the whole trip. I'm like this. Oh, yeah. And then when I sit at my desk, I just have to do it, actually. So that's why for the ogre, these little guys were the inspiration, because I really like this color scheme, and I was like, yeah, I think let's do that. Let's try that in a bigger scale. And the process is exactly the same, and the recipe are exactly the same. Yeah.
It is just everything's the same. It's just you have more of a canvas and therefore more detail, more.
Yeah, exactly.
God, that's fascinating.
Really interesting. Really interesting.
And
oh my God. It's the second time we heard it, because it's the same Albert says, well, I paint the model in my head. I don't plan per se, but I kind of do because I go through the steps in my head, right? The thinking of bits, the sculpting parts, that this is needed to fix. No, be careful of that edge. All of those things before he's even sat down, right? So it's fascinating to know that there are
Yeah, it
more of
was funny
you out
because
there.
when we talked with Albert, we realized that our process were
Is
exactly the same. And
Yeah,
I think we have the
Interesting.
same struggle with the job. We have a everyday job that is really time consuming. So
mm,
when we are at the painting desk, we really need to maximize
maximize.
the efficiency. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it also speaks to another split. I mean, just talking about like the painting approaches, like sketch to refined versus pre-planned. Also, this understanding of visualization in the hobby. There are some
Mm,
people who will visualize absolutely everything, and some people, I know Manus, you included, who
mm,
cannot visualize at all, and in
no,
fact need to do
almost at all.
everything. Yeah, and yet both can be very successful. It's not that one is better. It just speaks to the process. Um, I want to touch about the way that you approach kind of concepting a piece in regards to the fact that you sculpt, because this is a huge
Mm,
part of who you are, Maxime, because obviously you have a host of sculpted pieces out there, a lot of models with a range of distributors. I have, I think, a few of your fair pieces on my shelf, but obviously then that gives you a different appreciation. And I know I've been reading some stuff in the wider hobby where people often praise your sculpts, particularly as being beautiful for painters. Is that something that you keep in mind? And how does it change the way that you paint because you sculpt?
Yeah. In fact, the way I sculpt is changing the way I paint, but be a painter
Interesting.
also change a lot the way I sculpt, because some sculptor can make beautiful pieces, but when you want to paint it, sometimes it can be quite tricky because, for example, the fur or the hair can be over textured, or yeah. So be a painter is really interesting to sculpt miniature, I think,
mm,
and be able to sculpt or to draw is, for me, a key skill to be a good painter, because most of the time, we can see the exact same bust painted by different people, and
mm-hmm,
sometimes the interpretation of the volumes and the piece can be so much better on a specific bust. For example, all the pieces painted by Mark are so well interpreted. Like, he's really sculpting with his brushes, and sometimes the exact same bust can be a bit weird. Sometimes you have this uncanny thing where the sculpt is good, but the paint is
yeah,
weird and
amazing. Mm,
it's not realistic, and you don't know why. And most of the time, it's because you don't know how to interpret the volumes. You struggle to create something that is not over defined, uh, with the good flow, and be able to sculpt. I think is really interesting to achieve
mm.
that.
Is that something that you think is, I hate to use the word required, nothing is required, we do art, but do you think it's beneficial to people to kind of, if you're deeply invested in a hobby and you're like, actually, is this something that can improve my understanding of the hobby? Is it something that you try and push people towards, or is it actually, it's a very different discipline?
No, I think if you want to be better at miniature painting, I think the best advice I can give to someone is maybe paint less miniature and take a bit of this time you give to miniature painting to a bit of drawing and a bit of sculpting. I'm not saying that you have to master it, not at all.
Mm,
But for example, instead of doing one more painting workshop, miniature painting workshop, try to do, for example, a still life workshop with oil painting. In every cities, everywhere on the world, you have this kind of thing, and just try it once. You won't master it in just one workshop, but you will discover, for example, how to transform a flat surface in a volumes. You will play with a different approach with colors, with layers, and everything you will be able to understand. You will be able to bring it into miniature painting, and you will be better at it. And in the same way, last week I gave a sculpting workshop around the theme was the portraits, and we did a portrait workshop, a sculpting portrait workshop during 2 days. And some of the students was really good at drawing, at painting. And yeah, they were saying at the end of the workshop, like, wow, it was so interesting. I'm not mastering it. My portrait
Mm.
is not the best, but I really understand differently the volumes, the shapes now. And I think it was really interesting. So instead of doing one more miniature painting workshop, everyone should try a classical painting workshop or a sculpting workshop, and you will learn a lot, for sure.
Do you paint 2D too?
Yeah, a lot.
He's multi-threat, this man.
So
No,
you're
but
just
in
a painter and
my
a sculptor and a miniature painter and sculptor.
my everyday job is to be a painting teacher, classical painting teacher, and a sculpting teacher as well. So that's why even when I'm doing my everyday job, I'm still learning things, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said in like just wrapping yourself in this world and being like, actually, you don't know what bit of information or insight will then filter its way down into your end piece. But by exposing yourself to so many different areas, you can suddenly find yourself with a like raft of new inspiration or new tools and hobby. I keep thinking of what Dave's saying. There's always a new mountain to climb. And the more conversations we have, the more I feel that more and more. Sorry, Manus, I cut you off before.
No. It's just I was asking because sometimes on Instagram or whatever, you've shown something you've painted and then some of the palette, and it looks very much like you would be doing it if you painted an oil or like a canvas painting, where they're kind of intermixed a little bit, and you have the blue, the green, the a little bit of brown on the side, whatever, and then you have all kinds of mixes in between. And the way that you kind of put brush strokes and you pull lights together, it just is so reminiscent of 2D painting. And I don't think that is like the most common thing to do for mini painters. Mini painters are in general very like, okay, one color, next color, next color, boom, that's it. Where that's not quite what you're doing. You're having a range of volume or values, but also a range of hues, right?
And that's why I was so fascinated about the style of Dave Perryman, because I did a painting workshop with Mark Masclan some years ago, and I realized that our process were super close, and it was a process that basically Mark can paint exactly in the same way on a 2D surface. And when
Yeah.
I discovered the style of the heavy metal team, I realized that it was totally different from my approach, and that's why it was so fascinating. And that's why I was like, I need to implement something
Some of the
in my process to change it. And I wanted to try to paint a bit different than in 2D, to find something that is really about miniature painting, which is not super relevant, but anyway.
Well, but at least to me, you can still see a difference. So, as an example, your Trogoth, which I love, all
Yeah,
the
thank you.
the texture, all the color choice, everything is just amazing. But it's very, very different from, for example, the Nurgle Marine you did, where
Totally different.
they look like they're almost not from the same artist, because one is like quite expressive, like the light is where it should be, everything is where it should be, but one is like a little bit of a bigger canvas. You get much more texture, you get many more brush strokes in there, two different kinds of lights and a little bit of an underlight, all kinds of things. And the Nurgle Marine is just tighter, cleaner, more, it's not, it also has texture within, but it's just like a very different texture, not like a rough one, but like a very subtle one instead. And I don't know what changed between the two, if you wanted to do something different or saw something, or because I want to ask about inspiration too. But it's just those two pieces for me were not, like, in terms of years, that far between, but they're very different pieces, right?
Yeah, the process is totally different. For example, on the Trogot, I started with a really dark base coat, and then I was working just with light, more and more and more lights. So the contrast was going from 10 to 2, just by adding paint. And I think it's an interesting process, but you add more layer and layer and layer, and the texture is grainy, more and more grainy, and more. Different. It's different. And as you are going from really dark to light, for me, it lacks a bit of saturation. I was struggling on the Trogot to find the right saturation in the color. And yeah, I think it was the last model I was painting in this approach. Now, maybe the bust I did after, but on the two model from Golden Ribbon, the Nurgle Marine and the Orc of Nurgle, yeah, the process is exactly the same as heavy metal. Even the recipe are the same. The skin for the Orc is the heavy metal recipe, and the biggest difference is with the heavy metal technique. If you want to paint a green skin from an Orc, for example, you are not going to start with a dark green and going from dark to light. You are going to start with a saturated green.
Yeah, mid-tone.
And a mid-tone, even a lighter mid-tone sometimes.
Yeah.
And you are going from light to dark, and then from light to super light. And this way you will have less brush strokes and you will lose less saturation. So these two models are way more saturated than the Trogot is, actually.
I mean, it's so like it's one of those things that sounds like really fundamental as well. Like, okay, so where are you starting from? Either this very dark shadow or essentially a high midpoint, almost like completely different approach. But the finish that results is obviously like drastically different. I need to ask this question before I forget, and it's not too hinged on the previous conversation, so I do apologize. But you're also one of the few. I know I'm a bad person. You're one of the few, Maxime, who has this mastery of both non-matte and true matte, and I want to know how you make that decision, because I think a lot of people, they fall into one of the lanes, and they're just like, well, I'm always painting non-matte, so I'm going to paint non-matte. Whereas you obviously have to make a choice when you approach a project. So what governs that decision?
I'm painting since a long time, and between 2000 and 2010, no metallic metal was not a big thing. It was something that some people were doing, but most people were painting with metallics. And at this time, I was not a big fan of miniature painting, maybe because of metallics, because I was super lazy. And when you paint with metallics, you have to change the water during the process, and you have to go back, you have to clean the brushes and things like that. So when I discovered no metallic metal, I was like, wow, this is the best. And as I was super inspired by classical painting, illustration, 2D painting, I was thinking that it was a bit absurd to put real metallic on something to create. On a classic paint, like a paint from Velasquez, imagine if the armor was actually painted with true pigment. It can be so, weird, I think. So, so when I discovered no metallics, I was thinking that it was the best thing to do. And painting metallics is actually really good to understand the volume, to understand the contrast as well. So I learned a lot by painting no metallic. And when I started to paint like heavy metal, I wanted a more representative approach, of the material, something with less contrast and more focus on texture and rendering the texture of the thing. And at this moment, no metallic metal was not realistic enough in a way. With this new approach, for example, there is less contrast, and the ambient light is playing a bigger part, in the ambience of the model. So that's where I started to paint true metallic metal. And for me, honestly, it's way harder to paint true metallic than no metallic metal, because on top of your skills, interpretation skills or color skills or things like that, you have to fight with the pigment itself. And some metallic paints are really bad. And even if you are the best painter of the world, you cannot achieve good metallic with this. So when I started to paint metallic, I had to ask to many people, what are you using, what brand, and you have to do so many tests and experimentation to find the good one. And yeah, and I started doing true metallic metal for I think 3 years. And on the auger, I had the feeling that metallic metal, like true metallic metal, classic metallic metal at this scale, could be a bit weird, like on the Velasquez I was mentioning before. And I remember that Rémi Tremblay did something really interesting on his Athena bust. It was no metallic metal with just a tiny bit of metallic pigment at the end of the process. And I remembered as well a painter from France. His name is Jacques-Alexandre Gillois. For me, he's one of the best French artists who I've ever had in miniature painting. And this guy was painting with a mix of matte pigments and metallic pigment. So when he was doing an armor, for example, he was starting with a mix of 90% of gray and black. And as he was adding more light, he was adding more white and more metallic paint. And yeah, on his armor, the metallic was maybe some of the best I've ever seen. And I was thinking about Remy and this guy, and I thought maybe I should try something like this on the auger. And I really think I found a good balance between the two worlds, and I'm really happy of the actual look of the metal at the end of the process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild because I think when we first looked at that piece, we're like, oh, okay, well, that's non-matte. And then you look at some of the whips that you posted and like, oh, no, it's not. It's a hybrid. And not a hybrid as you would perhaps typically see it with like a load of applications of just like of glazes and washes to kind of really double down certain areas. It is constructed like a non-matte piece just with that, which is just incredible to see. So I think it may be something that kind of I'm learning from this conversation is you definitely have a curiosity for everything, and there is never a question of I'm set in my ways, but rather, oh, I've seen this, I'm going to try it. I've done this, and to your point, the kind of the low stakes models you do, I assume that's you trying these things out before you like fully apply it to a competition piece.
Yeah, and one thing, and some of the best non-metallic painter like Kirill or mostly Kirill, I think, yeah, he's really good at it, for example. And when I went to SMC some years ago, I saw one of his pieces in real life, and the metallics on the picture are amazing. But when you see it in flesh, some areas are just flat white, and it can be a bit weird. And when I saw it, it was I don't remember which bust it was, but when I saw it in real life, I was like, oh, it looks like Kirill, but I don't think it is because the non-metallic is different from the picture. And then I took my cell phone and I took a picture and I was like, oh no, this is the real one. This is the one from Kirill. And on some really amazing non-metallic metal, you have to have this big area of white. And I feel like it's a bit weird. And with this approach of no metallic, true metallic, the white parts are not white anymore. And when you are looking at it,
they have a shimmer.
there is a bit of sheen. Yeah, there is a bit of metallic feeling, even in real life. And I think it's a really good combo.
Yeah, that's really curious because I think it's one of the things that makes me, I don't want to say dislike, but like less non-met on the bigger scale. Because as soon as it just looks very painted. You can clearly see when you hold the model and it's like, let's say it's a bust size thing and it has a helmet, and the helmet, of course, you want to do a big reflection, and you're looking at it and thinking, well, if I took it like this, like arm's length, it works perfectly. As soon as I take it here, you can see, okay, it's just a blob of white or near white or what exactly. So it kind of loses the effect, and yeah, it's one of the things that I think makes
the
people
effect
struggle.
is still really good. The effect is still really good, but the texture of the paint is weird. You can see that it's paint actually.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it breaks the effect. Sorry.
Yes, a little bit at least, and I think it's also a thing that like people struggle on, because when you see a photo, let's say from Kirill, but it could be me or anyone else who does a non-met. When you see that photo, it looks pretty good, bordering.
Unreal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere between pretty good to amazing, like insane. And then you do it on your own piece, and you're thinking, well, but it isn't working. And it might be that it is actually closer to working the same than you think, because the photo you take, if you took one of yours and, saw it on your phone screen, well, it would actually be closer, because you don't like you translate 3D to 2D. You have it backlit. You have it, in the environment where it gets to shine, right? And it's the wrong light, for example, on a non-matte piece, and it
Yeah.
looks bad.
Yeah, it looks bad. But I think like I'm not saying that my technique is better as Kirill. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I think
Well,
Kirill is
that's what we
painting
will
for.
quote.
That's not a, that's Kirill is painting. I guess I don't know him actually. I never met Kirill, but I guess that he's really painting for box art, and he
Mm.
doesn't care about his model in real life.
No.
And as I'm not a box art painter, I'm more focused at if I have to make a choice between a model that looks good in picture and good in real life, I will choose good in real life for sure. And one thing that is really interesting about non-metallic metal is really a good technique to define things at a smaller scale. And even
Mhm.
20 years ago, in historical painting, most of historical painters were using non-metallic metal for all this tiny detail the soldier can have on their uniform. They were using non-metallic metal, and they were mixing non-metallic metal for the super small part with true metallic metal for the sword and things like that. So no-metallic metal is an old technique, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it can work for many things.
I just like this idea of, well, I want this effect, therefore I will chase it, no matter what that will entail in the painting. And this idea of what looks good in real life versus what looks good in picture. I've always been struck by the Nurgle Marine, because for a while the only picture I'd seen was the Golden Demon picture, not
Yeah.
the one on your Instagram. And I'm like, oh, these are so incredibly different, these two
Mhm.
pieces, just in terms of the lighting and the camera and the set. And it's like, oh, well, if that can affect this well-known piece that much, how does that like process the way that I think about my own work and the work that I see online and things like that? I mean, Magnus, you alluded to it earlier, but it is something that you're very hot on in community, saying you're probably thinking this because you're looking at it this way, and things look good in photos that may not look good in real life, and you have to manage that depending on what your priorities are.
Or even bad. Sometimes you have
Yes.
something that looks bad in a photo, but it works in hand. It
Yeah.
looks fine. It's like, oh, it's a little bit wonky, or it's a little bit grainy, or it's a little whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, but also remember, scale is a real thing, right?
Yes.
And you can zoom infinitely, or you can have the light shine on it, or you can have the sharpening of textures or whatever from a phone picture. All of these things are like, at the end of the day, they don't matter if the goal is to create a mini that looks good in hand, that you want to show to others, right? So you need to be critical in
Lately,
your
there is a painter that was a bit overlooked, I think, by the community. This is Benoit Menard. This is a French painter, and he is using very low contrast on his bust. And when you see it in flesh, all the texture are beautiful. He is playing with satin, with matte, with shiny finish. And I think he's one of the best painters we have even these days. But if you are looking just at the picture, you can think that this is not finished or this is just a base coat, but in real life, it's so much different. So I think we really need to see the model in real life.
So
And
value
finish,
is not the only contrast, huh?
No, exactly.
finish contrast is one of these things that I think people don't instinctively think they need to do because they're looking on Instagram and because it is so difficult to photograph. It is actually one of probably the pure joys in miniature painting, is the fact that it's a real thing that you will turn as you look at, and that's when you appreciate those finish differences. So don't be afraid of that. I mean, I know Alex dos Santos is also really big on this. Like, get that finish contrast in, because it does look really incredible, and it is something that's quite unique within the hobby. I have quite a big question now, Maxime, on what success looks like for you, because we're having this conversation more and more, certainly in community, and I think kind of off the back of the MPO results and Squidmore results coming up soon, where people are like, well, how do you define success? Is it the awards a piece gets? Is it your peers saying, wow, Maxime, this is stunning? Is it actually a personal sense of, well, I've done my best here? What is it for you when you're kind of constructing these projects and evaluating a piece at the end of the day?
That's a really good question. Tough one.
You can say it. Slay a sword or nothing.
That's it.
No, that I think there is maybe two things to think about. This is just me. I'm just Maxime Penaud.
This is yeah.
But I think, sometimes you are painting a model. Everyone is saying that this is beautiful and but you didn't enjoy at all the process. Like, it was a pain, and I think this is not enjoyable. So for me, success is based on two things. You have to really like the process, and you have to enjoy the process. And the model, which won biggest prize, were model where I enjoyed everything in the process, almost. And the second thing is, when you start a model for a competition, usually you think everything in your head and things like that, and you have a goal in your mind. And if at the end you reach this goal, this is a success. But
well, it's
sometimes
yet to happen for me, but yeah.
Now, I think it was in 2017. It was when I created my Instagram account. I was painting a Gilliman in non-metallic metal, and I enjoyed everything in the process. It was so much fun. And my goal was to win a Golden Demon, because I didn't wait to Golden Demon since like 10 years. And I was like, oh, it would be nice to win something, anything. And I think I was not even finalist or selected, or I think I won nothing with that, and the goal was not reached. So it's not a success, but I had the first part. I enjoyed the process, so I still really like this model.
Do you find that you have? I mean, fascinating asking this question to someone obviously teaches art. Do you find like these big ups and downs with your work, like both in the process? I think that seems to be a recurring theme, where people are like, I'm so high on this is the most enjoyable thing in the world, through to I am down in the dumps. How do you find that? And if so, how do you manage it?
So no, I'm not finding that because it's not my job. So for me, hobby is just a thing to enjoy. So I have many projects on my desk, and sometimes I have the inspiration for a project on my desk. I'm like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this thing, and I'm painting it. And when I don't want to paint it, I just put it back on the desk, and I'm starting something else. So I have no pressure at all. And I think this is why. But when I did some pieces for commission some years ago, I had this feeling sometimes, and sometimes it's really hard to find the solution, to find back the motivation, the inspiration, because when something is painful, sometimes you are like, oh, I don't want to do it at all. And I don't have the solution, unfortunately, on this.
I guess that is why you also, because you've mentioned a couple of times that you don't want to stretch a project. You want to ideally put 3 weeks. Sometimes it's a couple of months, but something like that, and then just put a lot of time within that short period. Is that because of that? So you don't lose motivation, so you don't feel like you get a bit stuck. You set the project aside, then it's like, okay, you know what, another thing would be cool.
For sure. I think we are all the same. We have so many ideas all the time, and I don't want to have the new good idea while I'm doing something, because I will lose motivation otherwise. So I
Yeah.
need to do it fast. And I think the Nurgle Marines was the model which takes most time, and I spent like 3 months on it, and I never spent much. No. The giant I did like 10 years ago was longer, but
It was also massive.
it was massive, and I sculpted it, but still it was 4 months, I think. I never spent more than 4 months on something. It's almost impossible, I think. You will lose motivation during the process.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Good
there
point.
is something that people are saying. Sometimes I hear people like, if you are not motivating by something, the hardest thing is to start. And when you will start and do it for 5 minutes, you will find back the motivation. But when I was doing sculpting for commission, it was absolutely false. Sometimes it was like, do it for 5 minutes, you will find the motivation back. And now, all the afternoon, I was like, I want to be somewhere else. I hate my life. So no, I think finding back the motivation is super hard. I'm sorry.
I do agree, though. I do agree. Oftentimes, it's probably because it's not for you. Like when you're painting for you or sculpting for you or whatever it is, even if you're a writer or anything creative, but it's for you, I think it is true. If you sit down, you get a bit into it, you probably will, maybe not that one session, but you will kind of probably find back to it as soon as you overcome, oh, I can't get this cape to look, or whatever it is, right? But if it's for someone else and you already soured on it, I think it's almost impossible. I don't think I like, and I think this is why there are some people who really struggle with competition, because when it comes down to it, like entering into competition is not doing it for them. It's because they feel like they need to finish a thing, put it there, meeting up with people, all of these things, but they're not really enjoying the competition part of it.
That's
So
true.
they're not doing it for them, and I think that's probably the people that struggle the most with because if you love painting anyways, you'll paint it, you'll finish it, it will look great, you'll enter it, and you'll have a good time. That competition, win or lose, right? If you didn't enjoy it, if it wasn't for you, now you're hanging everything on the nail of, does it do well? Otherwise, well, it's a failure, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
And that comes to the point about Guilliman of, look, okay, it didn't win a demon, but I had a lot of fun painting it, and therefore the glass can be half full, as opposed to just, God, no one won here. Everyone was miserable.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess, like, maybe an obvious question, but do you then, Maxime, like, kind of start a year not necessarily knowing what projects are going to be finished, if you'll have anything finished to the end of it, if you're going to take anything to like, if you're very much, well, I'm doing this for my enjoyment, and when I stop enjoying it, I'll stop a piece. I imagine there's potentially a risk then that you'll get through a year and actually you've started a lot of projects but not finished any.
Yeah.
No,
as an on top, do you already know what you want to bring to Spiel? Like, do you like Albert, for example, who kind of knows, this is my next project, this is what I want. Maybe it's not the next project, but it's one of the 2 next projects. Or do you only know 3 weeks or 6 weeks before? Do you already know?
No, I think we are all the same on this. I have in my head so many projects that I have to do at the beginning of the year. Like, early in January, I was like, what project I would like to finish this year? And I know that I would like to ensure a duel at Spiel, because duel is my favorite category since the creation of Golden Demon. And I never had the chance to do one. So this year I want to do a duel. I know that this year I'm going to do some works in my studio to change things and to optimize things and So I won't be able to paint for 1 month, I think. So during this month, I want to finish some 3D sculpting that I started like 2 years ago. So I would like to finish some sculpts. And this year as well, I think for the last 3 years, I painted a lot of Warhammer model. And this year, I really want to paint historical model. So I want to finish at least 2 historical models. So yeah, 1 duel, 2 historical model, and a bunch of sculpts.
Easy.
Yeah, so you already
Easy.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
do you
we'll
f-
see.
yeah, do you find that if you have, so this is kind of like a beginning of year goal. Do you find that you actually execute on it? Because, and I'm asking because a lot of us don't. A lot of us have ideas. Okay, I'll do this and that, then start something, but don't really execute on it. Do you feel like even though you're maybe not like Albert levels of like structured, that you do actually execute when you set your mind, I want to do a duel, then you do a duel. When you want to do a, no. Okay, so you are normal.
No,
Yeah.
no, I trust, I think that procrastination is not an issue. I think procrastination can be really creative in a way, can be a source of creativity. So at the beginning of January, I'm like, for example, the Ogre is a procrastination project because my idea for Monte San Savino was to create a model for Master Historical Open. So the idea was to sculpt and paint an historical model. And I was like, oh yeah, we start it next week. But before I want to paint this model I have from Aquelarre model, and then, you sometimes, when you know that you have to do something, you enjoy
Maximum
more
energy.
doing something else. So when I have goals, I can do something else and enjoying it more. So like when I was sculpting some years ago for other people, I was like, oh, I should do the dishes. And I was enjoying a lot doing the dishes. I was like, oh, no, this is so much fun to clean
Yeah.
everything in the house. This is a pleasure. And at the end of the day, you are not sculpting at all. There is no progress in your project, but
Yeah.
the house is clean. And this is the same, for the
But you
yearly
enjoyed
project.
everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if I don't do a duel, I know that I have a procrastination project, which is a Skaven, and maybe I will do the Skaven.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to have a plan A and a plan
And a
B,
plan
C,
B.
D. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
Yes.
goals, but be flexible is
Exactly. But it's really important to set goals. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
even
don't-
if you know that you're likely to break them.
is that has that been like a part of your motivation as well, Maxime? Because you've been competitive over now a very long stretch of time, and I think there are some people like, oh, I'll be competitive for a bit, and then I'll become a judge and I'll enter display only. But you're still competing. You're still having. Is that part of your motivation, or is actually competition almost like a sideline, where if you've got something beautiful, you'll just display it there because why not?
No, for me, competition. In fact, not all the competition, but since I am a kid, I'm looking at Golden Demon. And for me, Golden Demon is something that is really different. In other artistic discipline, you don't have this kind of contest where there is a winner, like this guy this year is the best painter you can find. This is absurd, but this is why I like it a lot. So yeah, I'm super motivated by Golden Demon for sure. And I was not motivated at all by open competition before. I don't know why. Maybe because I like when there is a winner and a second and a third. But yeah, I think the emotion I had when I was 12 and I was looking at Golden Demon in White Dwarf is something that, yeah, it's really good memories. And I think this is why competition is still very important for me. I'm not a big competitor in other area in my life. I like to run, but I'm not doing running competition. I think it's only in miniature. But yeah, I think it's motivating, and I like the fact that, for example, this year Albert did something completely crazy, and the goal of everyone will be to create something even more crazy next year. And I think it's interesting for the community as well.
Yeah,
This kind of competition. Yeah. So I want to compete.
and it pushes the hobby forward. Like I've been struck by that both. I think in what you've just said, it's obviously something we hear a lot from Albert, who's like very competitive, and there's almost like a point of pride as I want to be doing this and 5 in a row and multiple Slayer swords, etc. But those are the things that push the hobby forward, and also from people who are looking at those people like yourself and Albert and saying, "But I want to beat them." And therefore, I'm going to go do something crazier and have to think outside that box. I know something that Rich Gray has said before is the competitive aspect is allowed. And to your point, you don't have to be hugely competitive in other aspects of your life. It is maybe just this one thing. And yes, you're crazy and you really want to explore it.
Do you feel pressure? Like when you create a project for Golden Demon, for example, do you feel like, okay, this needs to be the best thing there? Like, is it, do you have anxiety? Do you have like, or do you just enjoy the creation so much that it will be good, but it doesn't matter if it's like this good or this good?
I try to do my best. So if I reach my best level at the time, I don't feel the pressure. I feel the pressure, the day where you can see
Yeah.
everything. And it's always the same thing. Like when it's your model, you always feel like it's a big pile of shit compared to everything. So you're like, okay,
tell
I'm
me
not
about
going to
it.
win. That's fine. But yeah, the day of the competition, you will feel a bit bad or you can feel the pressure. But when I'm at painting desk, no, I'm just enjoying the process and I'm just trying to do my best, actually.
So when you look at, for example, the Nurgle Org or the Nurgle Marine or Truggath or whatever, like these like award-winning and quite special pieces, do you feel that? Do you feel that they're like, yeah, these are really like actually amazing pieces? Because I know that, for example, Albert does. He looks at his latest creation and he's like, yes, this is amazing. This is like probably one of the best models ever created for the scale and whatnot. Do
Wow.
you look at well, I mean, do you look at your pieces and think, yeah, this is exceptional?
Honestly, not. Why? Because, on each model you have a lot of regrets, things that could have been better. But sometimes, if you want to reach a specific texture or a specific thing, and you reach it at the end, you can be happy. And I'm really happy about the Nurgle Marine because it's very different from my usual style. I really try to do something with a recipe that I don't know, an approach that I don't know, and I really like the result. And so, yeah, I still like the Nurgle Marines, but at the end, for example, I wanted to try something super old school on the sculpting for this model. But when I'm looking at it without all the references that I have in my head, the sculpt is really bad. So I have some regrets about that, but I like it as it is, but it could have been so much better.
It's that.
That's curious.
Yeah, you've seen it through from start to completion, so you probably notice things that other people cannot. And also, there is also maybe the fact that in your mind's eye you have seen the full potential of what you potentially could have realized, and therefore no one else has that vision. That's unique to you. It is just such not a unique thing. I find that so fascinating how everyone is often the harshest critic of their own work. Like even to your point, Manus, but like someone like Albert, who is like, yeah, I acknowledge this piece is really good. I would still perhaps fiddle with X, Y, and Z if I had the opportunity. Is there any kind of pieces in your history, Maxime, that were particularly challenging, that you felt like you had a lot of things to solve on, or you had to learn a lot in the application of it? I guess we tend to kind of, in the community, we talk about people having like level up pieces where a level of understanding fundamentally changed because of something about that project. Is there anything for you that comes to mind in your history?
Yeah, a lot. All the pieces I did for competition. Like I learned a lot on Gilliman because it was the first NMM I think I'd painted on a whole model. I learned a lot on the Troggoth because I think it was the first big model I was painting since like 10 years. I learned so much on the Nurgle Marines, and I learned so much on the Ogre, because in fact the Ogre was so close of thing that I was able to do on 2D, on biggest scale 2D model, because on the face, for example, there is almost no compromise. I could have had more nuances, more details, but at the end, there is many tiny touches of colors or things. So, yeah, it was really interesting. I really want to paint big model now, because it's so interesting, and that's why I want to do historical model this year, because I think I will learn a lot doing that. You need to really control the effect. You need to control the light to create something that is not super exaggerated, that is realistic. So yeah, I think I will learn so much with this historical model, actually.
Managing that razor's edge between realism and impact, and
Yeah,
understanding that it's
exactly.
fascinating problem to solve. And so then interesting that obviously you tie in your competition pieces to your evolution as a painter, which is obvious, but I think a lot of people sometimes ask, well, why competition? I think it can level you up as a painter if it's something that you find enlivening, if it is something that you enjoy. This is a stupidly big question. I apologize, but it's something that it's been on my mind a lot, and I've found myself asking it to a lot of painters whom like we would consider in that great echelon. What is the requirement? What goes into making an exceptional painter? Is it mindset? Is it approach? Is it talent? Is it hard work? And I've yet to receive the same answer necessarily from any painters. I think for me personally, I do think that mindset and almost discipline is a big part of that. But I know some people who I've told is like, no, it's not that. There is something else as an X factor. Is there anything for you in terms of both the artists that you are inspired by and your peers that you think, well, actually, what is it that unites us? What brings people to this top level within the hobby?
Yeah, that's really interesting. The question of talent is something that I'm re-questioning. Like, I think I'm teaching to people since 2014, so it's more than 10 years now. And I've met so many students, so many people, and I think talent, when I'm teaching, for example, painting or drawing to people, some people seems to progress super quickly, not because they are better, but because when you are saying something, they're able to catch it and to implement it almost in no time. And most of the time, I realize that this is a stupid psychology answer, I think, but I think it's important. Sometimes these people are, good and simple, or everything is right in their mind. And most of the time, people who are struggling to make progress, when you are saying something, the information is coming from their ears, and then in their mind, there is some block. Like they are like, no, I don't think this information is that good. They are questioning things a lot, and they are not implementing it, not because they are not able to do it, but because something in their mind is avoiding them to do it. So I think talent is, about finding the flow. Like, so I'm saying about giving information to people, but when you are painting, for example, someone who is talented or someone who will be a really good painter is able to look at his model, to make a self-critique, of his own work. He will be able to find what is not good, what is good, and just by seeing things in everyday life or just by being critique, he will be able to solve it himself, and he will be able to implement new technique and thing. And most of the time, the people, the better painter I've met in my life are people that are super smart. Like it's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I will give an example. I have a friend, Thibaut Ram. Do you know Thibaut Ram?
We do.
This guy started painting miniature, I don't know, like 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and he started sculpting I don't know, 2 years ago. And I think Thibaut is incredibly smart and is able, you are just giving him an information. He's taking it and he's making it like 10 times better. And this is amazing. And I think great painters are like this. They are able to find a solution to, they're able to do their thing, in fact.
Mm.
And for me, a model, a miniature at the end is just choices. You have to make choices. At a specific moment, you have choice A, choice B. Choice B is going to be the best, but you have to choose by yourself or by asking people. And a real good painter is able to do the good choice and is able to do a lot of different choice and to finish his model in the best way possible. So yeah, I think there is no talent, but maybe, I don't know, people that have simple minds, minds that works well and they're able to implement it. They
Yeah,
implement
and
everything super fast.
like the whole like critical thinking point and being able to almost like dissect a thing where
Mm.
you're looking and you're trying to solve an equation. This is not an equation of numbers, but it's still an equation. It's still colors and lighting and all of these things, and being able to see almost like through the layers or whatever. And some people are just more, I don't want to say it's a logical thinking thing, but it's probably like a critical thing where you're really trying to get to the bottom of what is going on here. It feels like these people have like a much easier time in terms of, you know, bettering themselves quickly. It's
Mm.
not that uh, most people can do it with hard work, right? But there are some people for whom it's like, okay, 10 times the speed of others.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think at the end, everyone can be as good, but the thing is the time.
Mm.
We don't have an infinite time and we have to be the
Yeah.
best
I
in
also think that a lot
less
of these
time.
people actually probably could have learned another thing.
Yeah, I'm
Like
sure of it.
it was mini painting, but it could also have been playing an instrument or I don't know, whatever kind of things you could do where, okay, I want to learn a skill, something where I need to devote some energy and some time and some thought process to it. And they probably could have learned the same thing, unless it's like, if you're tone deaf, of course you couldn't. It would be a little bit hard to play an instrument. But I'm just saying if it's something where you're not, already struggling with it from the beginning, you probably could have learned that too, being it anything, right?
But it's interesting because some of the students I have at school, sometimes they were a bit stuck in their mind for like the 6 first months of their teaching. And at one specific moment, I don't know why, something clicked
Yes.
and then it can go super fast. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's really hard because, sometimes it's super, you are doing something really hard, you are difficulties to solve it. And then if you solve it, you can, you can do a breach in the thing and then you can improve super fast. So sometimes it's not a linear process, I think, as
No,
well.
no.
Yeah, speed is not limitation. Just because, maybe you're having a hard time grasping a concept, don't get defeatist. Like, keep at it because, something may click and then suddenly you're leagues ahead of where you would have been had you kind of learned on a linear progression. I think there's obviously echoes in what you've both said there of what Mark said of teaching your eyes to see beauty, of being able to look at a piece and say, I find this beautiful, therefore it passes my internal check, versus I don't find this beautiful and I need to puzzle out why it is that it's not kind of viewing as beautiful for me. And I think on the Thibaut piece, there is something so powerful in this idea of the application of knowledge is not kind of having rote, like you're given a piece of advice and then you implement it exactly as it's been given. We don't necessarily need to think or dissect what you've been told, but actually being given a piece of advice and then doing something with it and applying it in your own way, I think is critical to development and improvement. And I think maybe if I think about a critique that can be leveled in this modern age where we have 1,000,000,001 tutorials on every single part of the hobby, is that it teaches people to do and paint by numbers as opposed to how do you think about this and problem solve, not just here is the answer. Now, I won't tell you how I got to it.
And I think one last part of the reply as well could be, I think it could be interesting to do sport as well, because I I started to do some sports like 5 years ago. I think I was not a big sportive man. I was not into this kind of thing, and it's really interesting to start a sport because you can understand better how your body is learning as well. Because
Mm.
when we are learning with our minds, like, I don't know, mathematics or literature and things like that, it's all in your mind. And with the body, it's different. Your body needs to do the same gesture like
Mm.
10 or 20 or 13 times. For example, you can learn I don't know, how to make a specific move in a sport. You can understand it in 1 second, but to master it, you will have to do it and to do it and to do it. And I think, yeah, for people who are struggling to make progress, starting a sport and see how they are improving at this discipline can be really interesting and really humbling as well, because sometimes you know how to do it, but you are not able to do it. Your body needs to, I don't know.
But that is actually a good point, because all the tutorials showing people how to do a mix of color with the right consistency, 90% get it wrong anyways, right? There are 100 of those tutorials out there, but the way to do it right is less about, the steps that you need to do, but it's actually doing it, actually having the feel for it. Like, if you
Exactly.
have a recipe for a cake and you have 100 people making that cake, it won't be the same cake. It just
Yeah,
won't.
exactly. Yeah,
And it's the same, right? Before how do you construct the thing? How do you make it a reality? I From paper or from theory onto making it work is so different, and that's why, like, a tutorial is fine, of course, but you might have to follow that like 100 times before it clicks, and now you can do it, right?
Mm. There is, I think there's something to be said about always being curious, always being willing to learn and be bad at something and improve at it. Um,
Yeah.
I am, I'm
the
often
best feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been a big piece of me in terms of reframing my own mindset within the hobby is understanding you never want to be the smartest person in the room. You never want to show someone a piece of your work and ask feedback and they go, I got nothing, because then you're stagnant. And that's a real bad place to be. Find the people smarter than you and try and grab what you can from them and move on. It should be a humbling experience, so it's a good thing, and do try and reframe your mind around that. You hinted at something before, Maxime, with your studio being redone, and you're doing continuing some sculpts. I believe you said digital sculpting. So is that something that you've kind of moved into in your hobby?
Yeah, I in fact, I started to do some ZBrush maybe 7 years ago, but yeah, it was too complicated for me at this moment. I was not ready. I was not ready for it. Yeah, my setup was not good enough. So I think 3 years ago, I bought a big tablet, to do a big Cintiq tablet, and everything to sculpt in 3D. And yeah, I did a formation, a big tutorials on Domestika as well to learn everything about ZBrush. This tutorial was amazing, by the way. And yeah, I created 2 pieces, I think. One to learn, it was a small goblin, and I started 2 busts, and I would like to finish it. And in my new studio, I will have a setup with 3D printers and everything to print at home. So I will be able to, to go back and forth between the
Print them.
software and real life to put everything
Is
nicely
that
together.
something that kind of excites you with the future of the hobby? Because it feels like we're in a bit of an interesting place with both, I think, the democratization of a lot of these tools, things like Blender, which is free to everyone, and the availability of stuff like 3D printing. When you look at, okay, where's the hobby going to go in the next 10 years? Is that something that you see at the forefront of that?
Yeah, I think the level will be incredibly better. Not the best level, maybe the best level will be for sure, but the average level will be better, because now you can download a lot of pre-made thing that you can print at home. So I guess that all the scenery and the base will be amazing. So yeah, and in terms of creativity, you can do things that you were not able to do like 10 years ago because yeah, there is a guy in historical model. His name is Kostas Kaotelis, and this guy is completely nuts. He's doing super tiny thing, tiny details. And when you are looking at one of his model in real life, it's almost unreal, as it's just a real person shrinked. But now with 3D printing, everyone is able to do this kind of model, I guess, because you can print crazy thing now. So yeah, I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, what a digital world with infinite zoom is very different to a traditional setup where you're having to sculpt with your hands.
But I'm sure that traditional sculpting will be something that we are going to look for in maybe 4 years or 5 years, because now you can, there is many AI thing to create models, and I think in 2 or 3 years we'll be able to create amazing model in 3D, and we'll lose a bit of personality. And in the luxury lux business, like the big brand who are selling things super expensive, they are not doing AI clip, they are using real people to do their clip, and they are super proud of it. And I'm sure that the big brands of miniature will use real people to sculpt real models in the next year. So
I agree. I think it's inevitable. I think it will come full circle because you can tell the difference between
yeah,
something that is, sculpted by hand uh, or sculpted by a person in 3D versus something that has, a lot of help from AI and tools and whatnot. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't look the same. And I
I think
think,
maybe in 3 years it will look the same. Like the
you
most
think so?
stream, yeah, I think the most streamed track in US in October was an AI song. It was an AI country song, and nobody
Wow.
was able to tell the difference. And I think for miniature, in 2 or 3 years, it will be the same. Like the model will be amazing, but I guess that the brand won't be able to be proud of this kind of thing. Like we just ask an AI, and I discovered an account from a guy, and he's AI painting his miniature as well. So I don't
Mm.
understand well the thing, but he's just showing a picture of the model, I guess, to the AI. The AI is painting it, and then he's posting the model. And I guess some brand will be able to do that not in a long time. So
Yeah, soon, pretty soon.
yeah,
Guys, stop depressing me. I don't.
Yeah.
I can't. This is not.
This is why you need to go to in-person competition, though.
Yes.
So you
that's
can
why.
so you can see the brushstrokes, so you can see a real mini, so you can,
Yeah.
And there is. I'm gonna bring in a different world, which I'm gonna feel very strange for. Like, but as my real job is I work in the events industry, and
Okay.
we had a period over COVID where everything was virtual, because you couldn't meet in person, and the industry has now swung back massively to in-person events, and is now moving slowly towards smaller scale, as opposed to having one event where 10,000 people come. We're going to move to a smaller event where a few number of people come, and I think that is the echo of this, where yes, maybe we're in a disruptive period at the moment where there's all this AI and Gen AI and stuff being generated with a click of a button. But at a certain point, people are probably going to ask themselves the question, what is real to me? And therefore, what do I want to see with my own eyes, touch with my own hands? And therefore, I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on that. And I think there's a lot to be said on human imperfection and the fact that we often crave it, look for it, and therefore, yeah, this physical piece. I mean, if it wasn't the case, I could think of so many sculptors that wouldn't find massive followings. But it turns out, no, we still crave the human. We still crave imperfection, because that's probably what's more real to us. So I'm overly hopeful in general that we're going to have this AI period, but then hopefully this bubble will burst and we'll be back to real people doing real things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why I love that Trugget so much is that you can see what is going on. You can see the brushstroke. You can see that a person did this, right? It's not overly perfect. It's not like everything blended super smooth. You can see color and textures and brushstrokes and all of those things is magical to me. It's like, sure, you could go more blended or more, but I don't like the idea of something like super smooth, super well, it could just as well be a colored plastic then, right? And I don't want that. I want the interpretation from the person who did it. That's what it's all about. At least to me, it is, right? Their choice, what they did with color and light and texture and all of that, right?
You want to see a soul, is what you're saying, really, ultimately.
I do.
Yeah, same. Maxime, I'm mindful of time. Classic Bruce truism. We have kept you for a long time. I guess kind of a final question for me is, where do you go for inspiration, or to whom? Whether it's, are you like Manus and I trawling Instagram and Putty and Pain and ArtStation trying to find just cool new artists? Is it actually you see it in your day-to-day life, which I think Mark was very big on, like just noticing the beauty around him? Like, what is that source for you, or actually is it a mix of multiple things?
In fact, lately I'm struggling to find a new illustrator to look at. I was using a lot Pinterest like 2 or 3 years ago, but now there is a lot of AI on Pinterest, like
Yes.
a lot, and I'm struggling to see if something is AI or not. So I'm not going on Pinterest at all.
Yeah,
And
same.
that's a shame, because Pinterest was a huge source of inspiration to find new things to look at. I'm using Instagram. I love to see art in general, so I go to see a lot of exhibition, and I take a lot of inspiration from real life, like when I'm walking in the forest, for example, or in a natural environment. I like to look at everything, and this is super inspiring. But yeah, I would like to find a way to find more illustrator to follow, and I think it was easier some years ago on Instagram. And I have some, big accounts with a lot of different illustrators, but sometimes you don't know their name, you don't know if they are real or not. So yeah, I'm a bit struggling lately.
We need to set you in contact with Tom then.
Yes, right. We'll make those
Nice.
introductions later, Manus. Don't you worry.
Nice.
Right then, Maxi. Obviously, if people want to follow you on Instagram, they should head to the_secret_workshop. Which, quickly, where does that name come from? Is that just the name of your workshop? I must know.
No, because when I created my account on Instagram, I was undercover. Like, yeah, I didn't want to say my name or everything, because I just wanted to enjoy painting tiny models on my desk. And then I went back to Golden Demon, and it was not a secret anymore. But yeah, the idea was to have an account where I can share even bad projects with people. And lately there is many projects I have on my desk that I never shared on Instagram, because I feel like it's not like good enough, but I need to do it. I need to do it. It's a lot of miniature painted in heavy metal style, but I should do that.
You need to set up a new Instagram, the secret workshop.
Exactly. I think it was one of my ideas for 2026.
Want to see these heavy metal Maxime pieces? Yeah, get them posted. Is there anywhere else that people should go to find out more? Obviously, you have wonderful pieces on Fair Miniatures under the same secret workshop. Is there anywhere else where, if people want more of Maxime in their life, they can find you?
Another undercover thing with my art school, I have a YouTube channel which is called Blombos. We have more than 60,000 subscribers now, so it's
wow!
Nice.
Congratulations!
Wow. Yeah, so there is many tutorials for people who are speaking in French, and yeah, and that's it. So Blombos.
I will include a link in the description for folks. So, I mean,
nice, thank you.
Thank you so much for this, Maxime. It's been fascinating, a great tour of your approach, your work, and why you're heralded as one of the great. So Thank you very much. And for all of you listening, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you found it educational and useful as we try and make these podcasts. All that remains is for me to say, until next time, go and paint something beautiful. Goodbye.
Bye.